Are we live? Let's see if we are. Streaming YouTube live. Okay, I see it. I just need to know where we are. Bear with me, because I just want to make sure I'm not talking and talking and talking, and then this thing isn't working after all like it sometimes does. Let's see it. I see it. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. ABC. Okay. We are live. Thank you for tuning in now and in the future. It's been a while since I've done a little something in the live stream department. But better late than never. Okay. Sorry, folks, I had to run over here to the fridge and get an edible. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for tuning in. Happy Catterday Saturday, because every day should be a Catterday. I'm eating a very good edible by Kiva Confections, Lost Farms, strawberry lemonade. And if you know anything about them, you know I'm going to be in for a nice treat in about 20 minutes. Today we are going to talk about crazy mental health professionals. I don't know how long I'll be on here yapping about my experiences with some of these crazy people. You know, maybe an hour, maybe 5 hours. I got all day today. Let me see. We'll talk about the dangers. We'll talk about the selection criteria for choosing a qualified and trustworthy mental health professional. I'll share some of my experiences. And you can let me know in the comments or in the chat section if you decide to check on in today while I am online, and let me know your thoughts on this. But in the meantime, I'm going to use the restroom right quick, and I'm going to play some music. Let's see what we've got here. Hula, 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 chikula. Ha, 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 ha. Okay, let's see. Mondlicht. I want to delete this one off of here. All right, I'm going to play a couple of recent hits. This is called Mondlicht by Uzi. I think it was number 5 in Germany. So yeah, I'll be right back.
Ich war auf der Suche eine ganze Weile, musste akzeptieren, dass es nichts wird. Auf einmal kommst du dann von ganz alleine, aber nicht wie ich es. Du bist kalt und ich schneid mitten im Sommer. Zwischen uns ist Wahrheit, warum pack ich meine Koffer? Du bist Eis, wird so Eis, Harry Potter. Und wir merken gleich, der Blick wie Zauberei. Und wir denken nicht mehr am Morgen, Stunden mal wechseln wir fort. In die Nacht nochmal von vorne. Halt die Zeit am Morgens muss ich gehen. Und wir denken nicht mehr am Morgen. Schulen immer wechseln wir fort. In die Nacht nochmal von vorne. In die Nacht nochmal von vorne. Lernen, uns kennen, sterben, schwächen, sterben, glänzen, Grenzen brechen. Nimm die Hand und tanz mit mir, denn dein Hals riecht wie das Paradies. Die und eine Million. Auf dem Meer schimmert Licht von dem Mond. Warum muss es enden? Unsere Blicke sprechen Bälle. Ich hab das Gefühl, dass ich Jahre kenne. Alles hat seine Bedeutung. Du hast nicht nur Licht, sondern meine Erleuchtung. Was steht uns im Weg? Alles, was wir wollen. Aber es ist spät, es kann nicht kommen. Von Anfang an miteinander reden stundenlang. Ein Wunder, dass ich dich gefunden hab. Diese Nacht unbezahlbar. Diese Nacht von Anfang an miteinander reden stundenlang. Ein Wunder, dass ich dich gefunden hab. Diese Nacht unbezahlbar. Die und eine Million. Auf dem Meer schimmert Licht
von dem Mond. Alright. Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Willkommen auf diesem Livestream. Ich freue mich sehr, mit euch allen heute zu chatten, ein bisschen über verrückte Mental Health Professionals. Alright. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here with you to chat a little bit about some toxic mental health professionals. In die Nacht noch mal von vorne. Alright. So that was Uzi, Ute, Mondlicht, or in English it's called Moonlight. What's been going on with ya? Can you believe we have survived COVID? Well, it's still trying to get people, right? It's still trying to get the world. It's not leaving. It hasn't left yet, you know. Rona's still here. You know, we were all getting a little bit more comfortable and getting our vaccines, those of us who went and did that, right? And then Rona said, oh yeah? I run up on that bitch twice, you know, like Cardi B. So she ran up on us 2 or 3 times with this Lambda and Delta crap. So, of course, you know, people are worried. It's a worrying time. It's a worrying time. And what do you expect? What all do you expect on that, you know? It's a worrying time. And people are afraid. People are losing their jobs, they're losing loved ones, people are dying. So naturally, the topic of mental health is probably prime right now, right? And a lot of people out there are still trying to walk around as if nothing's wrong. Oh, I'm fine. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm just great. I'm peachy creamy. Those kind of people, unfortunately, stuff catches up with them. And when it does, it's not going to be too pretty because you've been letting stuff fester and you've been trying to put on the mask of the strong, heroic type, you know, the strong, silent type that suffers in silence or can withstand anything. And, you know, this stuff doesn't, you can only go so long until the head gaskets blow. You know what I mean? So today we're talking about mental health, more specifically about crazy mental health professionals. You gotta watch out. I'm a big proponent of mental health. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge proponent of mental health. Ever since I was about I want to say about 9 or 10 years old, I would be digging in the Goodwill thrift store book section for old textbooks. They usually were from around the 50s and 60s on mental health, abnormal psychology, sociology. I had a copy of the DSMV around my teens. I got my first copy. I had a Stedman's Medical Dictionary. I had all of that in my teens because these were things that interested me. I was very fascinated, still am, with human psychology, human behavior, understanding the mind, and also mental health by default, right? And I myself have always thought that we all needed to have regular mental health sessions. Even if you're not depressed, even if you feel like you're doing just fine. To me, I see mental health and maintaining your mental health a lot like maintaining your physical health. You don't just go to the gym once or twice and call it a life. Yeah, no, you have to go several times a week. People who go to the gym are not, there's nothing wrong with them, right? It's not like they're abnormal. They go to the gym on a regular basis because they understand that they have to work at maintaining their physical health on a regular basis. And the same goes for your mental health, your emotional health. There are people to this day who feel like, well, I don't need any of that. And they carry this stigma in their mind about mental health and people who do go. And even the system, the way it's set up. If you're diagnosed with clinical depression or anxiety, if you have anxiety and they write down generalized anxiety, guess what? You are considered with a mental illness. And it's just not fair because if you're not depressed about certain things that you might be going through, I would say then there might be a mental illness. You know, you're only normal. It's only human and normal to respond to certain abnormal situations, like a global pandemic, for example. A lot of people are and have and still are and continue to lose their mind. They are losing their mind. They are just, excuse my French, batshit. People that used to seem like they were normal they've just lost it. And it's going on everywhere. I'm sure you've got some stories. I've got tons of stories, actually, of all kinds of people. People at the grocery store, people at people at the grocery store. Where else? I mean, just everywhere you go. And of course, people at, I'm trying to find out where this, where is my video playing? Excuse me. People at the grocery store, people at work, everywhere. I've come across quite a bit of these Karens. And you know these Karens need to get some mental health assistance. You know these Karens need to get mental health assistance. You know what I mean? What else? At the gym, at the swimming pool, everywhere you go in traffic, people have just really, their mental health has just really spazzed out. And for good reason, because we are all going through a global pandemic. Stuff is scary. The uncertainty of it is scary alone. And then if you've lost any loved ones or if you've gotten sick yourself, then it takes on a whole other level of scariness. So we are all being affected, and I venture to say that most of the world, if not all of it, is experiencing some kind of trauma response, be it PTSD or complex PTSD, or being triggered, anxiety, depression, all of that. I venture to say that the majority of us around the globe are really, really having to deal with some mental health issues. I don't think anyone is left unscathed. And those people who seem to be A-okay, something wrong with them. Okay? Now, something is wrong with that person. Because, you're just not going to go through a global pandemic and just go around hopping and skipping like you're Mary Poppins. No, something is wrong with you if you're doing that. And it's not that I don't want people to be happy, but it's just odd. You have people that are going around and they put on that face. And I always call it Facebook fine. In real life, horrible. Yeah, they're doing Facebook fine. But in real life, it's another story. You're not going to see all that put on Facebook. So, mental health, again, I want to reiterate, mental health is definitely something that we all need to be looking at, no matter who we are, no matter how fine you think you might be doing right now and how happy you might be. I still would recommend you seeking out a qualified mental health professional. Once again, people should look at mental health and going to counseling the same way they look at going to the gym. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. You're just maintaining your health. Your mental and emotional, and by default spiritual. Even if you're an atheist, there's a spirit behind you. You are a spirit. There's a spirit part of you. And your spirit can be oppressed with depression. It can be oppressed with baggage. So all of these different aspects are connected. They're interrelated. They're intertwined. And if one is adversely affected, all of the other ones by default will also be adversely affected. So having said that, I've been going to mental health folks ever since I was 21, when I was able to get away from the individual who gave birth to me and the step person, her husband. They didn't believe in mental health. They were very against anything like that. So I had to wait until I was on my own to visit mental health people. But as soon as I turned 21, I left, and that's exactly what I did. So I have had many years of experience with all kinds of mental health professionals, everything from psychiatrists, LMFTs, licensed marriage and family therapists, social workers, life coaches, NLP coaches. What else do we have? I said social worker, psychologists, hypnotherapists. You get the overall picture, okay? Psychiatric nurse. Yep. So I think I've gone through pretty much all the major types and different flavors of mental health professionals. Interns, full-fledged ones, experienced ones that were 30 years experienced, went to big-time schools like Harvard and UCLA. I've worked with facilitators that were interns that were just starting, that didn't have any experience, and everything in between. And one thing I'm here to tell you is you must be very, very, very careful in selecting a mental health professional, because there are some crazy people out there. And when I say crazy, I mean dangerous. I mean predatorial. By default, there will be a certain number of people that will join the mental health profession because they know they can get access to vulnerable people, to people in a down position. So you must be very careful because they are everywhere and you won't be able to tell by looking at them. So we're going to talk about the selection criteria a little later too, because I've got some tips for you in selecting and choosing and carefully increasing the odds that you'll end up with a qualified professional that is going to be good for you as opposed to someone who might be toxic and dangerous. One of the things that can happen if you end up with the wrong one is that whatever you're going through can be worsened by that person. They can end up making you worse. And that's not a good place to be. Believe me. I've experienced that. I sought out a professional that I trusted, and they turned around and made things worse. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a minute. So, if you've never gone to a mental health professional or you're seeing one now, think about these things. And make sure that you're with a safe person as much as possible. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. But, you know, a lot of times there's red flags. And sometimes we turn our head away from those red flags. We push them away, right? For whatever reason. And then something happens later on down the road, and you kind of kick yourself for ignoring those signs, those red flags. So, you don't want to be in that position. So, here we go. What really spurred on this particular live stream was that in 2015, I was going to group counseling, and I was going for some time, and it was the only safe space that I had at the time, the only safe place and safe space where I could really let myself be vulnerable and really talk about some of the things that needed to be talked about. And for over a year, I had worked very hard to confront a lot of stuff there that I was running away from all my life. A lot of fears, a lot of trauma that was just so overwhelming to remember, it's not that I ever forgot, but it was just a lot of stuff I did not want to deal with because it was so traumatic. And I confronted that and dealt with it there, and in a very safe place within that group and those facilitators. Well, one day, one of the main facilitators there went on vacation, and they had brought in a substitute from some kind of temp agency who was not a licensed counselor. She was not a psychologist. She was not a psychiatric person, psychiatrist. She was not a psychiatric nurse. She was not an LMFT. She was not even a licensed social worker. She was what they call an interning social worker. And I had no idea that some of these social workers are just plain out nuts. So, the first time I was in group with her, she led the group. Everyone got a turn to speak, and when it was my turn, I had shared with the group about the violent beatings that I received as a child and how the Jehovah's Witness Church helped cover it up, and their part in all of the child abuse scandals that they're having to deal with now, right? And no sooner did I get through telling the group about those violent, abusive beatings and other types of abuse, this woman starts acting strange, like she didn't seem pleased with what she took it personal, like somehow she was not happy with what I shared, and she was fidgeting around and seemed like she didn't really know what to say or do. So she smacks my arm hard enough for it to leave a red mark and sting. And as she's smacking my arm, she's acting like it's a joke, and smacks my arm real hard, saying that she and her aunt, no, she says that she's not a Jehovah's Witness, but her aunt is. At first she says that. Later on she changes it to saying that she's a Jehovah's Witness too. But at first she denies being one and says her aunt is just her aunt. She says her aunt is a Jehovah's Witness. And again, she's fidgeting around. She doesn't really feel comfortable. And I could tell when she told me that she's not a Jehovah's Witness, but her aunt is, I was like, oh, she's a Jehovah's Witness. Because isn't that the first thing that they do? They always act like they're not a Jehovah's Witness, but their relative is, or their neighbor, or their mailman is a Jehovah's Witness, right? They always want to say they're not a Jehovah's Witness, but so-and-so is in my circle, right? I don't get it, but whatever. So then she doesn't know what to say or do, and then she says, "What race are you?" And I look at her, and everyone in the group, and everyone's kind of perplexed, like, huh? What? Where is this coming from, and what does that have to do with anything? And out here in California, that's really not a safe question to ask at any place of employment. I mean, you're just asking for trouble. So I quit back with a quick human, the human race. Have you heard of it? And she says, oh, good answer. And that should have been her cue to just move on and leave me alone, right? No, she persists. She still wants to know, well, what race are you? You know, like so-and-so was Jewish, and then some people are Italian, and, I'm looking at her wondering why is she so fixated on my race all of a sudden after smacking me on my arm. And I guess maybe she realized what she did and then wanted to deflect or distract me, or I don't know what she wanted to do, but clearly she was messing with me. Okay, and it was because she was a Jehovah's Witness and didn't like that I was telling the group about the dirty secrets of her cult. She just so happened to be a Jehovah's Witness. And so after she asked me about the race thing and wouldn't stop, I got up and walked out of the group. Told the director I'm not attending any more of her groups. The director of the program kept trying to get me to go back. Nope, was not having it. So the next day, she started. Oh, and I told the director I don't want to talk to her. I don't want her saying anything else to me. I don't want to speak to her anymore. I basically shunned her. And so, starting the next day, this crazy woman, this intern social worker woman, starts harassing me in the hallways, hiding in different rooms and doorways, waiting for me to pass. She somehow realizes certain times that I go to the bathroom, I guess, and in other places. So she waits for me to pass her wherever she's hiding in the corner, and she comes out at me and tries to rope me in a conversation with her, even though she's been told I don't want to have nothing to do with her. So she keeps harassing me and keeps menacing me, basically, and she knows I'm angry, and she's getting off on it, and she wants to get a rise. She wants me to basically blow my fuse so she can say, see, look, he's crazy, let's do this and this and this, right? But she doesn't get that. And plus, one of the other counselors that I had a really, really good relationship with happened to walk in on her doing it. And says, come over here. And she tells me to come with her to another area. Well, I tell the director I want this woman's last name and her license number. And the director shields her. She refuses to give me that. And here in California, that's your legal right. Anytime you are dealing with a mental health facilitator of any sort, you are entitled to know their full identity and their license number. You are entitled to know their full identity and their license number. So, having said that, they refused. I went to HR. They refused. I had to go all the way to the health department in Jaco and get them involved. And then after the health department got on their butts, then they called me and gave me her info and told me that they terminated her and that they were sorry for what she did. And they were looking for her to take the high road, but she didn't. She actually lost her cool with the HR people and screamed at them and went off on them, which proved my point. Exactly. This woman has no business treating and counseling anyone. I had looked her up back then in 2015. I looked up her on the licensing board. She wasn't licensed. She was an intern. She was, studying to become licensed. But I didn't see any other records. So, once the health department got behind it, they terminated her, and the hospital clinic there where we had our groups, it was an outpatient group, by the way. Anyway, but it was sponsored by that hospital. It got fined for $85,000 from the health department for doing what it did. They violated my rights by not giving me her license number and last name. And of course, they violated a bunch of other rules with JACO, and the whole department had to be retrained for the next 8 months straight, including that director and the HR people. And they had all kinds of alphabet agencies swooping down on them for the next 16 months after that. So it was a huge ordeal. Okay? And they should have just done right and gave me her last name and her license number so I could go to the board, which I ended up doing anyway. You weren't going to prevent me from going to the licensing board about this. This woman assaulted me. She smacked me on the arm right after finding out that I had been a survivor of violent beatings as a child. I mean, come on now. And then she was menacing me and harassing me in the hallways to the point where I stopped going. I didn't feel safe anymore. And she basically pulled out the rug from under me. Like I said earlier, that was the only safe place I had. I had opened up so much in that group there. And she basically just pulled out the rug from under me. And I became suicidal. That day when she did that, I went home and I was just spiraling into that deep, dark depression of years before where, I was frozen. And I was suicidal and I had no one. Because the ones that I trusted, the place that I trusted was gone now. So I couldn't trust anything or anyone anymore. And it was scary. And I had to deal with that on my own because there was nowhere to turn. And I was right back in that place where I was a child, powerless. I'll never forget what that woman put me through and what she did. She pulled the rug out from under me. You hear me? All that progress I made, gone. And it was like she got a rise out of it. So, once all that went down, I just, I had to pick up the pieces myself. I had no one to turn to. There was no place that I could feel safe. And I had to start back over. I managed to pick up the pieces, but I never forgot. So fast forward, a couple of days ago, I was on the phone with a friend, and I just so happened to share this very experience with her. After I get off the phone, something says, why don't you Google her name? Why don't you Google her again? And I didn't expect to find anything because I didn't find anything back in 2015. But my, let me tell you, I knew something was wrong with her back then. And I'm glad I went to the licensing board and filed an incident report on her because let me tell you, apparently she graduated in 2010 from graduate school for social work and has been trying to get a license with the board ever since and has been turned down left and right. Because, number one, she's got multiple criminal convictions. Oh yeah. Including DUIs. And not just DUIs. Hitting and injuring a pedestrian. And then driving off, leaving the person to die. Yeah. You're supposed to be a social worker, going to school for social work and psychology and this and that. But you can't even handle your own life. You want to tell people how to live and help fix their problems. You need to fix your own problems first. Oh, and it gets better. She hit that person and drove off and got that record expunged. She got it expunged, right? But everything she does backfires on her because, check this out, she kept getting denied from the licensing board. So she has applied multiple times getting denied because she can't get off the dang bottle and stop getting in the car drunk running over people. She just can't stop herself. So, the last time she applied, which was in 2016, I think, 2017, she applied again. This time it was for an associate clinical social worker because she will never get the full regular social worker license. So I guess they told her, you could try applying for associate. You're going to have to be watched and supervised every step of the way at work. But, we may consider giving you a license as an associate clinical social worker. So that's what she did. She applied for that 3 times, got denied. So she decides to lie on the application. Okay? So when it asked her, let me pull out the paperwork, because I printed this out. I was like, I knew it. I clocked her way back in 2015. I warned people about this crazy person. It says right here. She sent falsified documents to the licensing board and knowingly made false statements to them. Okay, here we go. Here we go. It says here, they call her the respondent. Respondent checked the no box in response to the question on the application. Have you ever applied for or been issued a license, registration, or certificate to practice clinical social work or any other healing art in California or any other state? It's pretty straightforward, right? Respondent checked the no box in response to that question. However, she checked the yes box in response to the next question, have you ever been denied a professional license, including registration, certificates, or other means to engage in practice? Then the applicant was instructed to complete Part C of the background statement for this answer. She attached Part C and explained that she previously completed an application which was denied. Respondent also explained on Part C her no answer regarding whether she had previously applied. She believed the question related to certifications rather than registrations. Now, this is BS. The question says, clearly, have you ever applied for or been issued a license, registration, or certificate? The word certificate, certification, is right there in the question. So, either she was stone cold drunk filling out that application, or she flat out lied. And neither one is a cute look. Okay? So she claimed in her hearing, because they webcasted the hearing, by the way. And I watched the hearing. I watched her squirm. Ooh, it was just so delicious to watch her squirm, because she was an arrogant, hostile troglodyte when I had my encounter with her. Very arrogant. And she was just eating crow and just so humble. At least she portrayed herself as humble. I knew she wasn't humble, because even when they asked her, so what's different now? Why should we, let you practice? And what coping mechanisms do you have now that you didn't have back then? She didn't have anything to tell them. And she blamed everything else but herself. She still didn't want to take accountability for any of this. She could have killed that pedestrian and could have been in jail for manslaughter or just murder outright. She could have killed a child, a parent. You know what I mean? And she has no regard for other people. I know what she was doing to me, and she was getting off on it. And she's evil. That's some evil stuff. You don't do that to people. But I know those kind of predators, they have a smell to them. And I don't mean a physical smell, but I always can smell that evil in them. It's like they seek prey, and they get off on hurting and seeing someone afraid and hurt. I always know it, because I went through it so many times. But you see, she got the wrong person that day. because she might have triggered me, but she triggered me in such a way where I went and put all kinds of attention on her, all the alphabet agencies, including the licensing board. And I know my letters were in there in those files when they were having hearings on her about all of this right here. When it was time, to apply for the license over and over and over, I know they still had my files and my letters in her files. I know they had my incident reports in there still. And it was so delicious watching her on that webcast on YouTube. They got it on YouTube for the public to see. They got all her dirty laundry, all her stuff on YouTube. And she was blaming the one DUI she blamed on the fact that she met some guys, these bunch of guys at a concert. And she was buying them shots, and they were buying her shots, and they kept buying her shots. So, that's how she became drunk and got that DUI. Then she went off with another group of guys to New Mexico somewhere in a hotel, and got in trouble with the police there. And then she blames HIV, that she found out she had HIV on the other DUI. And that's why she got drunk and got behind the wheel of a car and hit the pedestrian. So everything, it was always something else that was the problem, not her. She still didn't want to take accountability. Still did not want to take accountability. So she petitioned. You can tell I'm loving this, can't you? Because I am. She petitioned the California Board of Behavioral Sciences that licenses social workers, among other things, for an early termination of parole. Okay? Now, she only had 2 more months of parole on her. Not parole, but probation. Early termination of probation. She only had a couple of months left until she was off probation for those disciplinary actions. So they asked her, why are you doing this? You've only got a couple more months. And she says, you know what? I really don't care about getting off probation. What I really want is for you to redact the medical diagnosis that is included in the public documents that's available to the public. And they said, well, didn't you yourself testify and provide this information? Yes. Weren't you and your lawyer aware that you could have filed for a protective order on that particular piece of info? Yes. So were you not also aware that you had 90 days after that proceeding to file? Otherwise, you would not be able to come back at in a future point and request this? Well, yeah. Okay, well then we can't do anything for you here. This was a petition for early termination of probation, and now you're changing it around. So then she comes back and says, you know what? I want the termination of probation early because I'm experiencing financial hardship, having to pay for weekly psychotherapy and for all the random drug testing that the licensing board makes me do. So, because she has to pay for all of this, the court proceedings, she has to pay for the paperwork that the licensing board and the courts have to do, and she has to pay for the weekly psychotherapy that she has to go to. She has to pay out of pocket for that, and she has to pay out of pocket for random drug tests, which they determine whenever and wherever, and they determine the frequency and duration of it. So basically, she's at their mercy. And she has to pay a whole bunch of other things. So she claimed that she had financial hardship. But then she hires a lawyer and turns around and sues, or is trying to sue, the Behavioral Sciences Licensing Board, the Department of Consumer Protection, the California Department of Consumer Protection, and the California State. It's all one umbrella thing. They're all interlinked. So that's why she's suing all three of them. And it's hilarious because the reason she's suing them is because she wants them to remove the medical diagnoses, which she herself revealed in her testimony. But it gets better than that, because remember I told you where she had that record where she had that hit and run and injured a pedestrian and hit and run and left that pedestrian to die? The person didn't die. But she got that case expunged. That's why I couldn't find it, because she got it expunged. But because she made these false statements and tried to deceive the board with her umpteenth application for a license, they decided to dig all that shit up and include it in the hearing and ultimately make it publicly available on her name. Had she not been trying to lie and deceive the board, that expunged record would have never came out. But the weird thing is, this dumb bimbo is so focused on trying to redact that HIV diagnosis, which she testified herself, because she was trying to use it to justify her drunk driving, you see, because she didn't want to take accountability. She wanted to blame it on the HIV, right? Blame it on the alcohol, blame it on the alcohol, blame it on the HIV. She wanted to blame it on the HIV. Now, if that is true, it's sad. If it is true, if, capital IF, if it is true, it's sad. Still no excuse, right? So the dumb bimbo really shot herself in the foot, and I had to laugh because I know her lawyer should have stopped her, and should have just prepared her for it. Like, you can tell her and her lawyer are not on the same sheet of paper. Every question that was asked, because she was cross-examined by 8 different people at that last hearing, including the Deputy Attorney General. So I know that woman must have been sweating balls. She didn't have any balls before. I know she had some drop during them so she could sweat them, because even I was sweating balls, and, I was just watching. Whew. Because they were digging into everything, and they were asking her why and where and how and all of that stuff. And to know it's public, you know what I mean? What was I going to tell you? Yeah, the expunged criminal conviction out there on the public site. When you put her license number or her name, it all pulls up right there. And you have the YouTube court hearings that were live broadcasted. You've got them available so you can listen and see. So that was great. But yeah, I knew that she was trouble. I knew that she was not a safe person. And now all of this is just confirmation. And back then, I was treated like I was overreacting by the department director there in HR. They wanted to shield her. I wonder if they knew all of this. Must have, for them to shield her like that, because they really did not want me to have her license number. They really didn't want me contacting the licensing board. And I said, you're not going to stop me. You're going to give me her license number one way or the other. So, unfortunately, I had to go and get a lot of other alphabets involved to get that to be the case, but that was on them, They wanted to shield her and play Captain Save-A-Hole, and that's on them. I don't give a damn. Anyway, yeah, they finally gave her a license, but she was on probation, and her probation, man, they made her jump through all kinds of hoops. She had to participate in weekly psychotherapy, and she had to prove that she went to psychotherapy. The psychotherapist had to give a letter, weekly updates. She had to pay for it herself. So, like, 4 times a month, you're going to see a psychotherapist for at least an hour. That's got to be some money right there. But really, how are you going to afford a lawyer to sue the licensing board if you're already having trouble paying for a psychotherapist and drug tests? I know that lawyer is laughing all the way to the bank. If I were him, I'd do it too. And her and her lawyer on the hearing was saying that they're going to file for protective order to redact that medical diagnosis, and that was back in September 2020, and here it is, almost August 2021, and all of the information is still publicly available. So yeah, that's one story about a crazy mental health person who really needed not to do any kind of mental health counseling and really needs mental health counseling her own self. She needs not to be in any kind of social work at all. Heck, they don't even hire her for McDonald's at the front register. You keep her in the back. Let her clean the toilets and mop the floors, and don't you dare let her come to the front of any kind of establishment. I don't care if it's just a hamburger place. You hear me? But that's my story on her. Now I got another one for you. This one was a psychologist, and this one was more recent. Actually, let me play a little music and take a quick break, and then I'll come back and tell you about this second one. How about that? Here we go.
Ina, on the river, on the Rhine. Blood, massive high quality. We don't know.
Turn the beat on, let it grow. Turn the beat on, let it flow. Turn the beat on, let it grow, let it grow. Turn the beat on, let it flow, let it flow. Siehst du diesen kleinen Punkt 1000 Meilen entfernt, der dir zeigt, da ist noch mehr und nichts ist verkehrt. Ich peil ihn an, geh drauf zu, alles so real.
So real.
Was kann passieren? Ich geh all in, nicht zu verlieren. Egal was mich treibt, was mich ruft, es ist nichts verkehrt.
Nichts verkehrt.
Ich starte einfach und seh, was da kommt, was ich weiß, da ist
Noch mehr.
Turn the beat on, let it flow.
Turn the beat on, let it
Turn the beat on, let it grow, let it grow.
Turn the beat on, let it flow. Ja, ja.
Manchmal alles so easy.
Ja, ja, manchmal alles so hart.
Turn the beat on, let it grow, let it grow. Turn the beat on, let it flow, let it flow.
Ina massive high girl, signal appeal. Come I can style beat in the air. Turn the beat on, let it go, turn it on. Turn the beat on, let it flow, let it flow. Blah, blah, blah.
Spürst du es vibrieren, das Signal, das dich zu sich zieht? Sagt, sie ist da, die Zeit zu sehen, was du willst und nicht. Schließ alle Türen, mach sie zu, die halb offen stehen. Mach mit dem Beat laut, lass Zeit es gehen, hab nicht zu verlieren. Egal was mich treibt, was mich ruft, es ist nichts verkehrt.
Nichts verkehrt.
Ich starte einfach und seh, was da kommt, was ich weiß, da
Ist noch mehr.
let it grow.
Turn the beat on, let it flow.
Turn the beat on, let it grow, let it grow.
Turn the beat on, let it flow. Ja, ja, die Hand ist so viel. Ja, ja, manchmal alles so hart.
Let it grow, let it grow. Turn the beat on, let it flow, let it flow. Turn the beat on, let it grow.
Trying to be down, man.
Turn the beat on, let it flow.
Massive high quality.
Turn the beat on, let it it grow, let it grow. Turn the beat on, let it flow, let it flow.
Yeah, yeah, makes my eyelids so
Easy.
yeah, yeah, makes my eyelids so
Turn
high.
the beat on, let it grow, let it grow. Turn the beat
Yeah.
on, let it flow, let it flow.
So that was Ina. Let It Flow. I think that was Germany's number 3 hit this past week. Number 3 on the German Billboard. All right, I'm back talking about crazy mental health professionals. This is my last one I'm sharing with you as far as my personal experience. So this was not too far in the recent past. I wanted to do some tele counseling since we had the COVID thing. I wasn't going to go in person. And I was looking for someone that was close by, but also someone that was going to hold me accountable a little bit. I had some life goals that I was working with, and I had some health changes, some physical health changes, life changes. As you get older, your health kind of changes sometimes, and I had to deal with certain things that weren't too pleasant health-wise, and I kind of just wanted someone to keep me accountable. It's not that I was in a crisis or anything, but it's always different when you have a little pressure behind you, when someone's holding you accountable, when someone's aware of your goals, and they're going to ask for updates and have follow-up with you on that. So I came across a psychologist, and she looked like a potential prospective one. And I contacted her, and she got on the phone with me. We talked a little bit. She asked me a couple of questions, and I wanted to make sure everything was squared away with the insurance, because sometimes these people want to charge you for things that is covered by your insurance, and they want to pull a slick one on you, or they want to. Sometimes you have that. Dentists do that quite often, by the way. So I had already checked with my insurance. I already knew what was covered, and I wanted to make sure she didn't pull a fast one on me, because that happened to me before, where someone charged me and tried to make me pay for something that was really covered by my insurance, and they were doing fraud because they put in an insurance claim for that session while at the same time billing me. So unfortunately for them, they didn't fare well with that. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to deal with another dud like that. And she said, oh yeah, everything's fine with the insurance, don't worry, and we will proceed with an appointment the following Monday there. And that was going to be for 9:30 a.m. Tele session. It would have been through one of those medical conference things that a lot of counselors have and doctors have nowadays, right? Okay, so the appointment was on a Tuesday, by the way. So Friday I emailed her again because I didn't hear anything back about the insurance from her, and I wanted to make sure that everything was squared away so I won't get charged extra fees or anything. Yeah, well, I still haven't been able to figure out my system, but don't worry, and even if the insurance doesn't accept my billing, I won't charge you for the first session, but the next session forward, we'll have to figure something out. And, then I started wondering, does she have her stuff together? She seems a little wacky. But I still gave her the benefit of the doubt. So the weekend passed, Monday morning, I still didn't see anything in my email box because I had told her, I want to make sure that you have your insurance and squared away so there won't be any financial surprises on my end. So I email her Monday, and she tells me, oh yeah, don't worry, and she reiterates what she said Friday. And then that Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., No, at 8 a.m. I email her and I ask her again because like I said, I have been burned so many times, so I'm really like super cautious and super thorough. And again, she says, I have not been able to figure out my insurance system, my software. I'm frustrated, but go ahead and fill out this patient registration thing, and we'll just wing it from there. So while I'm filling out this patient registration thing, and mind you, it's the usual. You put your name and past medical history and what's going on now, and do you have any allergies and this and that, right? But there's also a page there where it's asking for payment info. And the way I have things set up, I don't have a copayment. So there's no need for her to have any payment on me. So I skipped that, right? So as I'm filling this out, she's emailing me one email after another, doesn't even give me a chance to answer her. And mind you, this is all like 45 minutes before our session, our scheduled session. She's emailing me, oh, I saw this and this on one of your profiles. She's trolling my social media accounts and then trying to use that to manipulate me into all kinds of gaslighting, and ultimately she wants to lay blame for something on my social media that she saw that disturbs her. One of the profiles about on me that disturbs her, and all the signs in the universe are telling us, she's saying us, not just her, but me too, that this is not meant to be, and don't give up on finding a facilitator, and best of good luck. And this is like 2 and 3 emails in a row, like within 30 seconds to a minute, where like she doesn't even give me time to confirm if this is me or not, or anything. And then I'm like, oh no you don't. Oh no you don't, hooker. Pardon my French. No you don't, hooker. You can't figure out how to get your regular high ass fees for $230, $220 or $230 per hour. You can't figure out how to cheat me out of it because I didn't give you any financial info, because my insurance covers this, and you want to get extra money out of me. And who knows if it's really a problem with your software. But if it really is that you can't figure out your own software, you're too stupid to figure it out, so you want to blame it on me. Because whatever she was talking about on my social media is nothing to be disturbed about unless you're just a stupid bigot. Okay? But I'm glad she emailed me this, because I went straight to the licensing board. Well, and before I went to the licensing board, I fired her and told her not to ever email me or talk to me again. Do you know she kept emailing me with sorry, and it's been so stressful for me, and this and that. I don't give a damn about whether you're stressed and can't figure your own shit out. That's not why I'm here. I was here for you to help me, not me to be a shoulder to cry on after you done shit on me. No, ma'am. Not going to happen. So I said, tell it to the licensing board when they reach out to you about this. She still kept emailing me, and so I had to just block her. Still was trying to latch some kind of way, even after I told her I was going to licensing board. Well, do you know I left a Google review on her, and do you know I told all kinds of things on that Google review, and after that she closed her office. It said permanently closed in less than 24 hours. Oh, by the way, in the Google review, she responded and she put my information out, my personal information, medical information. How stupid can you be? So I reported her to HHS too for the HIPAA violation. This is a woman that claims she's got 13 and 14 years of experience, claims she's got 6, 7 kinds of degrees in all kinds of psychology and psycho and psychotherapy and psycho this and all of that, and zillions of certifications, and you're too stupid to not put people's medical patient information on the dang social media. Like, you should not even be doing the social media responses. You need to hire a qualified company. So, yeah, I really had a good feast on her because that licensing board contacted me right away, and I had all the proof, all the email exchanges where she was doing all of this trolling and gaslighting. And I said, here you are. And she's been under investigation, I think it's almost 5 months now. And the thing with licensing boards is, it's a really big deal. You see, it's a really big deal because they're out for the consumer's best interest. So let me put it to you this way. When a psychologist has the licensing board scrutinizing them, whether it's based on fact or not, the simple fact that they are scrutinizing and they're contacting you now and you're on their radar and they're looking into you because someone's complained about you, that alone is already very frightening and nerve-wracking, because it's a lot like anything you say can and will be used against you. You see, and they might have been contacted for one thing, but once they go through all your paperwork and through all your handlings and your business and all of that, they might ding you and discipline you on other things they might find along the way, you see. And you can end up, if you don't have a lawyer speaking for you, you can end up saying things and revealing things that could end up be worked against you by the licensing board. So it's filled with minefields, basically. The territory that she's having to walk in now as a result of being reported by me is a nerve-wracking minefield. And, you know, if it's just a day or two, it's already bad enough. But if you're having to be under that kind of stress for duration of time, several months, maybe a year, even in the middle of a pandemic, really not the best, I would say. But that's what she got for doing that to me. You don't do that to a patient. You don't throw off your responsibility and then try to make that person feel like there's something wrong with them, and that's why you're cutting off the counseling thing. You know, she would have just been better off had she said, you know what, there's a family emergency that's come up. I won't be able to make today's appointment or tomorrow's appointment, and I'll just get back in touch with you. And she had just ghosted me. She would have just been better off doing that. But to troll a person's a client and someone who's coming to you, trusting you to help them, to troll their personal life, and then pick something at random as the reason why all of a sudden you don't want to do counseling with them now, when really the real reason is you can't figure out how to cheat that person because you're doing shady stuff with the insurance. No ma'am. No ma'am. And that's why the universe put us together, so you could learn that lesson. Because I'm not the one that's going to tolerate any of that. I know I might sound like a kid on the phone, and I might look like a kid. I get often asked, so you still in school? And I love it. I love it when people call me kid. They say, hey kiddo, hey kid, just hold on kid, be patient, hey kiddo. I love it when they do that to me. But a lot of folks always get surprised, when things go down, because, like, that's not a kid there. No, I'm not. I just let you think I was. But anyway, so the point of all of these little stories is that you have to be careful. Mental health folks can be very dangerous. A lot of them don't have their own stuff together. And some of them may be worse off than you. Okay? So when you look for a mental health facilitator, what is it that you should look for? Number one, that they're not crazy, right? You want to make sure they're not going to hurt you and make you worse off than you were before. Number two, you want to go ahead and get their full name and their license number. Any trustworthy professional of any sort who is licensed would have no problem giving you that information. If they're already giving you problems when you ask for that information up front, go the other way. This person is not for you. They're not transparent. They're hiding something. There would be no reason to get offended or angry or hostile or annoyed over being asked for that info. So, rule them out. If they give you any lip, bye. See ya. Another thing you want to look at, if you've gone through cult abuse or if you're LGBT, you want to get someone that is friendly to that, who doesn't just tolerate that and who has some experience in that. And sometimes it's hard to get someone with certain kinds of experience. But one thing you might not want to do is work with an intern or somebody who's just brand new, okay? Because this is some heavy duty stuff. You'll probably want to seek someone with 20, 30 years of experience. But however, just because they list a zillion years of experience doesn't mean a thing. They could just be complete airheads and totally incompetent. And then you've got somebody who might be 5 years in and a really good match with you. So it all depends. So don't rule out just anything, but also use your common sense. Let's see, what else do you want to do? We talked about education. You want to make sure they come from a qualified school and they've put in the education and training, right? Let's see. The therapeutic alliance. Yeah. Basically, it means that you vibe well. Your energy matches well. You can have someone that has all the qualifications and all the great track records, but if you just can't vibe with that person, that's not going to happen. So you do need to be able to have a therapeutic alliance. So use your intuition, trust your gut. If your gut is screaming run, run. Even if this seems like the nicest person and they just handed you a big cake as a gift, run the other way. Don't go against your better senses. You want to take into consideration with what you might work best with. Some people prefer women, some people prefer men, so gender can be an issue. Some people don't care. Also, age. You might prefer someone a little older, or you might prefer someone your age, or a little younger. Everything has its advantages. With older ones, if they've been in the profession some years, you have a lot more experience. With younger ones, you have a lot more openness for modern things and new things, whereas the old people, the ones that's been there, they might be stagnant, set in their ways. Religion also may play a key. If you have someone that's a Christian counselor and you're an atheist and you're triggered by church and religion, don't go to one of those. Okay? I made that mistake thinking, well, surely they're not going to mix the church stuff with the counseling. Well, I mean, what did I expect? Their site said Christian counselors, so, and I didn't know that was a Christian counselor until I already made the appointment, because that was actually a referral from someone I knew, and they didn't tell me this was a Christian counselor. But I still gave it the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, it wasn't going to work. So this is another thing you need to think about. So credentials, right? They need to have the right kinds of credentials. You've got licensed clinical social worker, LCSW. You've got LMFTs, licensed marriage and family therapist. You've got NCCs, National Certified Counselor, LCDC, licensed chemical dependency counselor, LPC, licensed professional counselor, LMHC, licensed mental health counselor. Then, of course, you've got the doctors, Doctor of Psychology, Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Medicine, Physician Psychiatrist. Let's see. I'm always about doing background checks when dealing with mental health professionals, and I think you should too. And you need to get the real background checks, not the $19 ones online. They don't tell you everything. There's a lot of information missing out of those. LexisNexis, LEXIS, LexisNexis. It's about $175. So here's the formula I would advise. Keep in mind that it might take you, on average, it takes about 8 to 12 different people to go through until you find the right mental health facilitator for you, until you find the right match. So keep in mind you're going to need to go through several people first. So don't get discouraged if after the third one you're like, oh gosh, I can't find anyone to match with me, I can't find a good counselor. No, you just haven't gone through enough. You need to go through more. 8 to 10 to 12. And that's a very conservative estimate, because sometimes it might take you 20. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely normal too. Now, if it's 1,000, I would say, yeah, maybe you have a problem there on your hands, But you're going to need to go through quite a bit to sort out the ones that work for you. The next step you want to do is, once you found one that you really vibe with, giving them some time, put them on probation, give it a year if they don't weed themselves out earlier. Because sometimes you have whack nut jobs. You're going to come across nut jobs, and they will weed themselves out for you if you know the signs, if you adhere to your own authenticity about any kind of cues you're getting in your gut or in your intuition, your intuitive senses about someone. If you just don't feel right, even if they're the nicest person in the world, cut your losses and keep it moving. Trust me, you will only regret it later. This is from my own experience. So ultimately, trust your gut. But if you found someone that you really like, do a background check on them. And I don't mean just Google. Yes, Google too. Google as much as you can. But get that LexisNexis out. You want to know if they've had any criminal convictions that might have been expunged, that might not be available through just regular, traditional background checks. Because there are people that will get their stuff expunged, and you won't see it. You won't ever know about it if you just rely on Google and one of these online background check things, people search or whatever they call it, E-Verify. E-Verify, by the way, sucks. Waste of money. So, and once you do that, once you cleared them, and you've given it a year at least for them to prove themselves, then I would say you can begin to open up about some vulnerable stuff, and it looks like they might be a good match. But don't ever let them get off that probation. And be ready to cut your losses and move on. Don't make this person your everything, your only safe space. Look for another one. Look for another space that is safe for other outside support. Let's see, what else? Look up their license. I hope I already mentioned that. Look up their license number. Once you get their name and license number, look them up to see if there's any problems there. Like I said, they shouldn't have a problem with you looking them up and doing a checkup on them. That just means you're very serious and committed to your therapy. And that's really a counselor's dream come true. Someone who comes in, who needs them, and who is committed to getting better. I mean, your success is their success, right? If they have all these patients and clients that are getting better when they come to see them, then that means they must be a good facilitator. So it works both ways. So the commitment starts right there when you're looking at what is this person's name, what's your license number, because I'm going to do a background check on you. I'm going to look you up and see if your record's clean with the licensing board, for starters. But that doesn't mean that there might not be something, because again, this social worker I told you about at the beginning, when I looked her up, she had no records at the licensing board because, number one, she wasn't a licensed social worker. She was a study, an understudy. She wasn't licensed yet, right? And I guess that expunged record was expunged, but I think those other ones, I don't know why they didn't have it up. I guess she didn't have any, yeah, of course, because she didn't do anything to warrant any disciplinary action yet. So that's why it wasn't included. The minute she started lying on her applications and falsifying them, that's when they were like, okay, we're going to put all this stuff out on you, all of these criminal convictions in the past, because, you know, that reflects on the kind of character you are and your tendencies and predispositions, and we are going to review this and keep this in mind when you come to us asking us to issue you a license to be a social worker and to have other people's well-being and lives in your hands. Makes sense, right? So in this case, this person would have your life and your well-being in their hands for the duration of that therapy alliance. So you really want to put some thought into this. Give it time, be patient, and just know you're going to have to go through a good bit of people. You're not going to find the right one right away. So if you don't blame yourself. And watch out. Watch out for predators. You have to watch out. It's just a sad thing. And, you know, going out there and getting any kind of mental health counseling takes a lot of courage. So I'm very proud of you. If you are one of those folks listening and you are in therapy, in counseling, and you're maintaining and you're working on your mental health on a regular basis, or if you're seriously seeking that, I want to tell you I'm proud of you. Because that takes a lot of guts. Alone to go out and seek a counselor and to do that work takes work. Because you're not going to find the right one right away. Most likely, you're not. And it takes a lot of courage because that alone takes a lot of work. And you're taking a risk because you may encounter someone who is a dangerous, toxic mental health professional. But if you know some of the warning signs, you can quickly weed them out and move on. And I would also say if you're in the mood to go a step further, don't hesitate to report those that need to be reported. Because see, if they do this to you, you're probably not the first nor the last that they do that to. And they've probably been getting away with it for so long that they become cocky. So that's another reason why I do things the way I do. But I don't advise that for just anyone. It can be stressful on its own. So keep in mind, just stay positive about it. I'm proud of you for actually thinking about and doing counseling. Those of us that are doing it, it's it takes a lot of courage to face your own problems, to face yourself, to change yourself, to have that humility where you're going to look at those aspects of yourself that need some work, that need some improvement, and those aspects of yourself that have been a challenge, lifelong challenges, and maybe some of them haven't been lifelong, but they've been around for a while, and maybe those patterns that keep repeating, even though you've tried your best and thought maybe they were even done and over with, and then something happens and here you are at square one again. That's also part of life. We all have these things, and going to a mental health facilitator takes a lot of courage and risk, because you're having to risk a lot there, and you have to also change. And now you've got someone kind of helping you be accountable to yourself. So that's not easy. Not everyone obviously seeks it. I think most of the world probably needs it. But that's it for today. That was my chat about crazy mental health professionals. They're out there. They're everywhere. But if you prepare and plan, if you know what to look for, if you have a good checklist of criteria, don't be afraid to Google it. I'm obviously not giving you a whole lot to work with, but I'm giving you something to think about it. And you can Google all kinds of articles that help you kind of sharpen and flesh out what exactly kind of the criteria you need to use when you're hunting for a good qualified mental health professional facilitator. All right, so that's that. I'm amused. Also, if you ever run into one that is toxic or predatory, don't be afraid to report that. Even if people around you want to make you feel like you're over exaggerating or they don't want to believe you, right? Don't be afraid to take it as far as you need to take it. Because in the end, you might find out years later that person right there was toxic all along, had an extreme disregard for people in general, and you just never could get to the information because it was expunged, like with that social worker. So, yeah. And I don't know why they put a social worker as a substitute for a mental health facilitator, an LMFT, because social workers, know the first thing about EMDR or CBT or anything useful, So anyway, all right, I'm going to stop. Thanks for tuning in and listening. It is Saturday, and I've got some things to do. I've got some things to enjoy. We're going to have some dinner a little later and some wine, and watch a couple of great movies, eat some juicy grapes, enjoy each other's company, and just have a blast. All right, thank you for tuning in. Should I leave an outro song? I'll leave you with another outro song.
Sie fragt mich, wo ich war, sag, wie oft war ich nicht da, drück aufs Gaspedal und fahr, Frauen meine Nummer. Ich bin das, was dir fehlt, aber für mich bist du nicht mal eine von 100. Was du wieder redest, was für Zukunftspläne, ich glaub, du verstehst nicht, dass es dafür schon lange zu spät ist. Eine Nacht mit mir, ich glaub, dass du so langsam den Verstand verlierst. Wie gerne bist du mit mir ein Tag. Du rufst in deinen Träumen meinen Namen. Sie fragt mich, wo ich war, sag, wie oft war ich nicht da. Drück aufs Gas, bitte.